Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday and welcome to Dreamstruck. We are so excited tonight because we have a special guest from our home office, our compliance department. They are our friends and they're here to just give us some knowledge about the Sensi standards. So I know that they have a lot to go over with us tonight. So tonight is going to be really great for you to have your notebook. I have my little purple Sensi notebook and an ink pen. If you don't have it in front of you, I would highly recommend Jesse, Joe's, everyone who has their notebook, show us your notebook. All right, if you have your notebook and your pens, there we go. I see Emily's. So we are ready to take some notes here. And there might be some information that you already know, that's okay. And there might be some information that you've never heard of before, so that's awesome too. There will be some time at the end for Q&A. So that's also where your notebook will come into play. Write down your question and then you can ask, when the floor is open for questions. We'll answer them through the chat and hopefully the actionable item for tonight is that each and every one of us, even if we're a superstar director all the way down to essential, that every one of us will be able to take something away this evening that can help us better understand our businesses, how to protect our businesses and Sensi in general, and also to really understand that compliance they are our friend, and they are really truly here to help us. All right. So without further ado, I would love to introduce. We have Tia and also Lori Willis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Teresa. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. I've had microphone and headset problems all day, so I've been worried. But we are so glad to be here with you today. T is on as well. We just really hope that through tonight, you'll come to appreciate that we really are not the bad guys. We just really want to provide education. We want you guys to be successful in all that you do, and we hope that it will become a team effort, that you'll feel comfortable to reach out to us just with questions or in those instances when you might need to report something. So to get started tonight, I would like to introduce to you one of my dearest friends. She's also my boss, and I think she's amazing, and that is Tia Hallfast. We're going to ask her to get us started with telling us a little bit about the Direct Sales Association and the Federal Trade Commission. So Tia, do you want to take it over?
Awesome. Well, first I want to say thank you so much for having us tonight. It really means a lot to us. Lori and I get really excited when we get to do these. We're kind of like when you guys would see Orville and Heidi, we get like, oh my gosh, consultants. So really appreciate it. We know that you guys are all really busy, so we really appreciate you taking this time. And honestly, sincerely, I hope that this is just the first of many conversations to come. So with that, I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to first I wanted to talk about why compliance. And I think before we can really get into that, we got to get into a couple other areas. And one is the Federal Trade Commission, so the FTC. So for those of you, you may hear about the FTC. Sometimes, I know before I joined compliance, I'd hear about it every once in a while. I wasn't really sure what they did, but I thought it was kind of cool when I found this out. So the FTC, it's headed by 5 commissioners, no more than 3 from the same political party. They're nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and each of them serves a 7-year term. Their main duty is consumer protection and unfair methods of competition. So we definitely answer to the FTC. Then we have the Direct Selling Association, the DSA. And that is National Trade Association for companies that market products and services directly to consumers through an independent sales force. That's you guys. The DSA also serves to promote, protect, and police the direct selling industry while helping direct selling companies and their independent sales force become more successful. It ensures that all members of the DSA, the companies, the products, and the direct selling opportunity are conducted with the highest level of business ethics. So that's another real critical. So we answer to 2 parties. So then it gets kind of to what's our primary responsibility in compliance. 1 is to educate consultants and answer questions. 2 is when necessary, we do have to enforce the Sensi standards or the compliance guide to protect your right and ability to operate as an independent consultant. Why do we do this? Well, we do this in an effort to support you and protect your Sensi business. The standards and the compliance guide are important because they help you know what's required what's expected, and what's acceptable. So we hope that you find it beneficial. We know that we're called oftentimes the police or whatever. We are not personally going out, and I promise you, nobody in my department is out there proactively searching for any violations. We do spend a majority of our time here in compliance, responding to reports from other, it could be consultants, customers, whoever. Compliance with the Cincy standards will help you operate your business in a healthy and ethical way, which protects the Cincy opportunity for all consultants. So I hope that makes sense to you guys and you understand kind of why we're here. We're not here just for kicks and thrills. Majority of the people that are in compliance have been here, oh my goodness, in excess of 7 to 10 to Lori. What are we at, 15 years almost?
15. Yeah, 15.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then Lori's going to talk about how you can get a hold of us.
Okay, but before I do, there's something that you all need to know about the compliance manager, Mrs. Tia Hallfast, who just spoke with you. She recently attended the Direct Sales Association convention, I guess they call it every year, and she completed and is now certified with the DSA. So I just wanted you to know that Tia takes her job seriously. She wants to be able to provide the best to each of you and to us that work with her. And so just know with that, that's an honor. And I am so proud of her and I'm delighted to share that with you tonight. So,
Thank you, Lori.
All right, you're so welcome. So this is what I wanted to share with you is we have this great compliance team. How do you get in touch with us and how do we help you? So first of all, I wanted to let you know that there are 3 ways you can get a hold of us. 2, I'm sure you're probably familiar with, and the 3rd, you may not know that we do this. So the first is you can reach out to us by email. Again, that's just compliance@cincy.com, or you can submit a ticket. With those 2 options, we just ask that if you are, there's usually, as Tia mentioned, we're either getting reports from consultants reporting other consultants, or we're getting questions, can I do this? Can I advertise this in this way? Is this within standards? So if you are either way, if you would just send in documentation of what it is you're sharing with us. If you're reporting another consultant, be sure to send us documentation that proves what's going on. Then we can look at that and we can say, oh, you know what, I can see why they submitted that, but actually this isn't out of compliance. And if it's not, then we'll respond to you and let you know why it wasn't. If it is, then at that point, you won't get any more details because due to privacy, we can't share with you what we reach out to the other consultant and say and do, but you will know that we are looking into it and taking the appropriate steps to handle that situation. So just really important there that you send in documentation, whatever side of the coin that you're contacting compliance for. I also just wanted to put in a plug here. Because we handle all of these things, we want you to be able to spend your time growing your business, sharing the opportunity, recruiting, doing sales, those kinds of things. So please don't feel like you have to be out searching for consultants who may be out of standards on things. If you happen to run across something, by all means, you could send that in to us and we're happy to look into it. But we surely don't want you to feel like you have to be the police, for example, out looking for people who are maybe out of the standards. But if you've come across something, send it to us. We will handle it from there. But don't feel like it's your job to have to find people that are out of compliance. So wanted to share that with you. Now, the 3rd way that you can get a hold of compliance, and we love this, and we hope you'll take advantage of this more and more, and that is you can just give us a call. We are happy to take your call. If you really need an answer right away, typically that's going to be the quickest way for you, unless it's something that's escalated and we need to get some clarification on. But quite generally, when you call in, we can get you an answer at that point. So what you'll do is you actually call the consultant support number, and let me give that to you. It is 877-855-0617. When you get into consultant support, they're going to verify that you are who you say you are, and then they will transfer you to compliance. We have, oh gosh, Tia, you can probably tell us how many compliance representatives that we have who are ready to take your call. And we also have our case specialists, if as needed, that they can reach out to get the answer to. Tia, how many compliance representatives do we have?
We have 20 reps, and they don't even get one phone call a day per rep. Now they're busy. They have thousands of emails and tickets, but they really miss talking to consultants. So they'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so please don't feel like, oh, I'm going to be bothering them. No, we would love for you to do that. So we just wanted to make sure we highlighted that tonight. I don't think, Teresa, that we shared that last March when we did this the first time. But now you know, give us a call. All right. Tia, I'm going to hand it back to you to discuss some of the new changes we've had as far as standards in our compliance guide.
Great. Thanks, Lori. Good job. So we have the Cincy standards, and we updated those in August this year. We also added, and we were thrilled to add this, the compliance guide. So the compliance guide we created to help provide additional information in specific areas for consultants, those that we felt like people needed a little bit more, and in layman terms, kind of information on those rather than having everything in the standards. Both of those documents can be found on your workstation. I hope you've had time to check out the compliance guide and the new standards. Not much change with the standard except for the things that we put into the compliance guide. And then there's, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, the selling, consultant to consultant selling, and we'll touch on that. In addition to the standards and the compliance guide, there are a lot of trainings out there available on your workstation as well. So we hope that you'll check those out, and we love to get feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We do love feedback. Yeah.
And Tia, if you don't mind, I'm going to just interject that some of you may have seen in the past, we've had them on the workstation. We call them our posters, where it gives you examples of things for personal specials or different things like that. Yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do it this way. We did have to remove those or take them down for a bit from the workstation. Our consultant development and training team is doing some things with those. But listen, we still have access to them. So if you're like, I really need to see that poster that was there, and it would be great in answering this question from my downline, just reach out to us and say, hey, can you give me the link for the compliance posters? We are happy to do that for you. So just wanted you to know, if you've been missing those as much as we've been missing them, we do have access, and we can get that access to you. So
absolutely. That's a great point, Lori. So we're going to dive into kind of the more than 10, but maybe like the 10, 12, 13 hottest topics for compliance to see how we can help you guys and everybody to remain compliant. So Lori, you want to take it with personal specials?
I would love to. Now, I will say personal specials is one that we get a lot of questions on, and we love it. People will email in or ticket in and say, can I do this? Is this out of compliance? Or we do get a lot of people that get reported for maybe they aren't doing it correctly, or maybe the person reporting them doesn't understand it fully. So let me give you just some information about personal specials tonight that I hope will guide you. And again, let you know that if you have a question about a personal special that you want to do, the verbiage you want to use, or the pictures, just send it into compliance and we can take a deeper dive into those. So with personal specials, what you need to remember is that as a consultant, you can charge what you want for Cincy product, whether it's higher than the corporate price or whether it's lower than the corporate price. Either way, that's considered to be a personal special. And we know, just as you know, that personal specials is a wonderful way to develop your customer base. It's a way to create that bond between you and your consultants. Okay, I'm going to do like jumping jacks for a minute. And the lights time out. So if you see me doing that again, I'm really not exercising. I'm just trying to get the lights back on. But anyway, so with personal specials, what you have to be aware of is how you advertise the personal special. So there's a private way, which is good. That's what we want you to do. And there's a public way that you can say you're having a personal special, but you can't disclose details. So let me go through that just a little bit. Private communication, we call that one-to-one. And that would be if I'm face-to-face with you and I'm telling you, hey, I got this personal special coming up in November, and I'm giving you the details. That's okay. One-to-one is also considered with like a text message because it's me to you. It's not the general public. Other ways of private one-to-one is a phone call. It could be a private message. It could be... oh gosh, my mind just went blank. On the phone, it can be just one-to-one. It's not going to be out there for everybody at one point. So as long as you're doing that and sharing your details, you're fine. If, however, a public display, or not display, a public way of advertising a personal special would be things like, oh, I'm just going to take it from our compliance guide. It would be public advertising, including but not limited to newspaper ads, coupon books, your vehicle wraps. I love seeing cars that have been wrapped for Scentsy. We don't consider Facebook pages to be private, so I'm going to include that in our public. You can do a Facebook page, but again, in each of these avenues of doing public, you can only say, hey, I'm having a personal special, contact me for details. So you can do that on any of these public forms of advertising, Twitter feeds, Instagram stories, Google ads, temporary event signage, even those flyers you sometimes see in a grocery store. You can publicly advertise that you're having a personal special, you just can't give the details. So when you say that, contact me, they're going to contact you. And then in a one-to-one, whether that's text, phone, private message, whatever it is, you can then give them the details. But one thing we just wanted to make sure we highlighted tonight is that you don't be confused in thinking that a private VIP page on your Facebook or of that nature, it is not considered to be private. And so there again, you can only say you're having a special, but you can't give details of that special. So sometimes when people are trying to do giveaways as part of a personal special, that kind of crosses the line into pay to play. And Tia is going to share a little bit more about that when we get to that part of the evening. So, well, Tia, I hope that I got all that covered really well. I'm going to hand it back to you to talk about another one that we hear a lot about, and that is inventory on hand.
Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate it. And hey, sorry to talk personal with you. I didn't know you were still here in the office because I'm in 301 if you don't want to do the jump around dance to keep the lights on. So just wanted you to know that. Okay. All right, let's talk about inventory on hand. So first we need to talk about what is considered inventory, okay? Once you become a consultant, all Scentsy inventory that you have in your possession, so regardless of when you purchased it or how you obtained it, it includes all product you may have or had prior to becoming a consultant. All of that is now considered your inventory. Okay, you're not allowed to advertise inventory on hand. However, you can use marketing images on your workstation or use a promotional display, something like that if you want to, instead of taking pictures of your, things yourself. We ask that you do not post, publish, or comment with pictures or videos, discontinued product of any kind. When determining whether a violation has occurred, we kind of modified this because we wanted to loosen the reins a little bit. And that is, we take the verbiage and the images that are used. So before I'll give you an example. We had one time a consultant that said, oh my goodness, my daughter's cleaned my office. And she shows like tons of inventory. And we were like, oh no, that's inventory on hand. Well, and then we got with the execs and we kind of modified that. So we do take into consideration the verbiage. So it is okay to do something like if you say, oh, look at the order I just got in from Scentsy from my last party, something like that, so that it is clear that you're not advertising that for sale. You're just showing what you're excited about your order you got in. You are allowed to respond to in search of, so ISO posts. However, you may only respond regarding the product and the quantity being asked for. So for example, if we see a post that says like, oh, I'm looking for a Kermit buddy. Does anybody have a Kermit buddy? You can say, yes, I have one, or yes, contact me. But you cannot respond with, yes, I have 25. Yes, I have 3, whatever it is you have. But you can respond to them. Now, this is an area that we're very cautious around because this is probably where we see a ton of the violations are in these in search of groups. And regardless of who you think is in there, trust me, they're turning in violations. So we ask that you be very careful and just make sure you're only responding to exactly what the person wants. Then you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
All right. Lori, you want
Thank
to take
you,
on
Tia.
leadership? Ooh,
I
we got a fun
do.
one.
Now, I'm going to just share with you, I have been with Cincy for 15 years, a little over. And so through that time, I've had the great opportunity to work with leaders through every step of my journey. Beginning with managing, running consultant support and account service. I even did a little bit with compliance and recently returned to compliance and have loved being in this role again. Prior to coming back to compliance, I was a business analyst. Some of you might know the term of concierge. Well, that was me. And so I work specifically with superstar directors. So I do have a little bit of background in this leadership. And I want you to know I love the way that they have written this section of the compliance guide. So don't forget, it is chapter 6. And any questions you have about what responsibilities or who you're responsible for with leadership obligation, it is all found there in a very clear and good manner. So what I wanted to share with you tonight, in compliance, I'm what's called a senior compliance case specialist. And one of my roles is to work specifically with people who want to do sponsor changes. So I hope I'm going to give you some examples of sometimes what we hear. Somebody will email in and they'll say, I want to change my sponsor. She's just not helping me. She's not answering my questions and she's just not doing good by me. And so they'll want to make that sponsor change request. Well, what they don't know is that in our standards, it states specifically that we don't make sponsor changes except under qualifying circumstances or during reinstatement. So as we look at their concerns, what we will typically reply back to them with is what a sponsor's obligations is versus a leader, which would be a director, star director, or superstar director, what their obligations are. And they're a little bit different. So I'm going to share with you, I'm just going to read this from chapter 6 of the compliance guide. It says this. While the expectation is that you are providing support and assistance to every new consultant on your team from the moment you sponsor them, these leadership activities become required once you promote to director or above. So I will say we expect sponsors to do that. I often think, why wouldn't a sponsor do that? You want to build this great team. You want to have a good rapport. It's only going to help you and them. Why wouldn't you? But we do find some people who maybe have enrolled and didn't understand quite what it meant to be a sponsor. And so we will say that while we expect that your sponsor will do that, if she doesn't, we would suggest that you go to your director who is required to provide support and assistance to you. And that support and assistance comes in 4 different areas. So I'll just interject if by chance, and I'm sharing this because I know there are directors, star directors, superstar directors on the call, but there's also others who are on their way to getting there. And this will help set your expectation as you do. So if someone is saying that the director's not meeting obligations, then sometimes we do what's called a leadership audit. And the first part of that audit is we would reach out to that director and we'd say, okay, there are 4 areas that you need to show you are meeting the criteria for. And those 4 areas, just to help all of you understand, is number 1, providing assistance. If somebody's reaching out to you to ask you a question, are you responding to their text or to their email or their phone call? Are you helping them with that assistance? The second area is that you need to be providing training to your team. And just like Teresa and others tonight have put this together, this is a great example of providing training. It doesn't necessarily always have to be this big. It could be just a phone call and you're explaining something to someone, but you need to show that you're providing training. The third way is you need to communicate regularly. And I will say, and Tia, I think you would agree with me, a lot of directors and above, they use Facebook. That's a great way to cover a lot of ground and be able to communicate with a lot of people. But communication can also be emails, texts, phone calls, whatever seems to work for you and for your team members. The fourth area that we require directors and above to provide is team interaction. So even tonight, you're having some team interaction as you see other people on the call and asking questions. You're learning from them. Facebook can be a team interaction. Again, a lot of times we have the group pages that we know about and you guys share with each other. That's a great thing for leaders to provide. But there's just sometimes you guys get together, and I love this when we do in-person reunion or world tours. You'll get together and you'll have a great time there. And we've even provided some training at some of those as well. So those are the 4 areas that are required for a director or above to do for their team members and to help them grow. What I wanted to share as you go through chapter 6, and I want you to promise you're all going to go through chapter 6 because it's got so much great information. There are suggestions or examples of things that you can do to meet those obligations, but I just want to reiterate, those are examples. It doesn't mean a director or above has to do those exact things. If we request to find out what they're doing, they just have to show that they are doing something. And it might be one of those examples. It would be crazy if you don't. There's some really good ones, but it could be something you've come up on your own to meet that criteria for that area that we're looking at. So just wanted to let you know that. And then I'm going to do one more thing. I know I'm taking a lot of time, but I love leadership. In chapter 6, it also explains who has responsibilities for who. Sometimes we get things reported that will say, I have a director above me and she keeps reaching out to my team members, and that's just not right. She shouldn't be doing that. So in chapter 6, it outlines specifically as a director who your obligations are to, as a star director, who you have obligations to, and even a superstar director, who you have obligations to. So briefly, I'm just going to go over those really quickly. Just this first part I think is important. As a consultant, your focus should be on supporting every consultant in your downline, but keep in mind that until you promote to director, that support is going to be shared with your upline director. So let's say you're a star right now, you've got some people that are under you, you want to provide them support, but you're going to share that responsibility with your director because all of you are part of her team. So then it goes on to say, as a director, your immediate focus needs to be your front line and each person that they sponsor down to another director. But it's no longer, once you get somebody underneath you that promotes to director, then your responsibility is just to that director, not to her team. So those are some things that it's helpful to understand. If you're a director, you're responsible for your team. If you're a star director above this director, you're just responsible for that director, okay? Not for her team members. Or even if you're a director and you have somebody promote to director, it then becomes your obligation is to the director only, not to her team. As a star director, again, I just love this verbiage. Your immediate focus needs to be on your team and providing support to your directors in your downline as they lead their own teams down to another star director. When one of your downline directors promotes to star director, then you're going to transition that responsibility you had to those directors under her so that she takes that on. And then lastly, as a superstar director, you know, by this point, they typically have very large organizations, but guess what? Their immediate focus should still be on their team. And it's also on providing support to their directors and star directors in your downline down to another superstar director. So once a superstar director has a superstar director promote under her, her obligation to that new superstar director ends. She's not responsible to provide them training. She's not responsible to mentor. Well, she can mentor, but she's not responsible to work with their downline in any way. She needs to let them handle and be the leader of her downline. So that's sometimes hard and to break that away, but it's important to let a superstar director be in charge of her downline. And we just also, it shares in here that, you know, Teresa, as you get new superstar directors, it's totally good to reach out to that person and say, hey, would you love to collaborate with me on incentives that I may be doing or trainings like tonight? And oftentimes the superstar directors will work together. But again, they will each be responsible to to reaching out to their downlines themselves. The superstar director, or level superstar director would not reach to the new director's team. So last thing I wanted to say about that, each of those says you should be focusing on your team. I just want to share that as a business analyst that I did for so many years, we would look at the business analysis report, which you all have access to. It's in your workstation under reporting. And we would look at their numbers and we would set goals to help their businesses keep growing. And the saddest times for me were when I would be talking with someone who had not been focusing on their team, had not kept it growing, had been maybe too focused on directors and others that they were providing good support to, but had lost maybe the need to recruit and to keep building that team. Because as you know, when somebody promotes to director, they're no longer part of that superstar director's team. And so if you're trying to meet the requirements to get paid at title, you've got to have a big enough team to reach those volumes that you need. So I just want to reiterate there, please keep a focus on your team, keep it growing so that you're not going to have problems meeting TWV requirements when you get to these higher levels so that you can get paid at title. Now, I promise I'm done talking about leadership and I'm going to turn it back over to Tia, who's going to share with you another very important standard that we get, and that is e-commerce.
Yeah, good job, Lori. And leadership is super important because everybody's going to be a SSD eventually, right? Everybody on this call anyway, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So e-commerce, and a lot of people say, what are we talking about? Or a lot of consultants think that e-commerce just means eBay. So when we talk about e-commerce, we're specifically talking about those websites out there that have direct checkout functionality. So what is direct checkout functionality? Direct checkout functionality is a payment processing service that many sites offer to users, meaning they actually process the payments. So use of any third-party direct checkout functionality for Scentsy sales is strictly prohibited. It is not allowed. This means you're not allowed to advertise product on any site in which direct checkout functionality is the only payment option, okay? Customers must not be able to pay, and I'm talking about places or websites like eBay, Mercari, those kind of sites, where it is mandatory that you use their direct checkout functionality. The good news is some sites allow you to choose not to use the direct checkout functionality, meaning you can block that option for your customers. For this reason, we did modify the standards because we wanted to allow a little bit more freedom to consultants. We modified this policy in the last standards revision. And basically it was just to allow consultants to use more sites that weren't previously allowed to be used. Now, that doesn't mean you can use eBay because eBay does not give you the option, right? But you may use websites in which they offer direct checkout functionality as long as that site allows you to opt out of using it, meaning they don't require it, okay? In these situations, you're allowed to use these sites as long as you do not use the direct checkout functionality, which means you must opt out. I don't know how many of you have ever used these sites before, and I'm not asking for any confessions right now. But if you're ever unsure about a site, reach out to compliance and we'll definitely walk you through it. For some of you, Facebook Marketplace, and this is one of the reasons why we actually pushed in compliance and we went up to the powers that be that actually make the decisions. Facebook Marketplace last year turned on, I know for the US, and they are going to eventually, we've heard that they're going to be turning it on in other places. They actually offer now a direct checkout functionality. And we were like, oh my goodness, if we take Facebook away, I mean, we see how much business you guys do out there on Facebook. So that actually helped us to get this turned around. They do offer it, but you must opt out of it. And I know we have not been able to replicate this in-house, but I have heard that, oh, sometimes when you put something out there, Facebook will automatically make it a direct checkout functionality purchase. So you need to make sure that you do opt out of it. We will be contacting you if you don't. This is one of the more serious violations that we have. In fact, first offense for this violation is suspension. At the very least, you're going to get a fine, but it could be cancellation. Second offense is cancellation.
Nation.
Yeah. So please do make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tia, I know we that always sounds so harsh, but the
I know.
damage that it can do to other consultants, we just can't overlook that. And we need to make sure that you are protected. And hopefully, even on the first one where they're suspended, we can get them some education and help them so that if they're allowed to stay, it won't happen again just because of the damage it can do. So we are
Absolutely.
very dedicated to that. So,
Yep.
all
And keep
right.
in mind, you're also responsible. So you cannot have family members out there doing it, best friends,
Good
but whatever it
point.
is, do not have them go out there for you, because we do have our ways. We will figure it out and we will have to address it. So, yeah.
I'm
Sorry,
glad you shared
I
that,
feel like I'm
Tia.
tough on that one. Sorry about that.
That was really good to share because sometimes that does happen and the consultant may not even know that it's a family member that's doing it. So we'll just give you the heads up now. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tia. That's great. So I'm going to next cover retail locations and promotional displays. Since he defines a retail location as anywhere that offers goods or services as their primary objective. That's what they're there for, is to services, and that could be a salon, it could be a restaurant, something of that nature. Goods is, a store where you're going in to buy something. So we prohibit that. You cannot do cash and carry in a retail location. One thing we wanted to make sure that we share tonight, because sometimes it's confused, that even if you're at a mall or somewhere that is a retail location, even the sidewalks or the breezeways or the things around that are also considered the retail location. So we don't allow delivery to be done or set up to do cash and carry in parking lots for retail locations, those types of things. We don't want people to have the notion that, oh, I can just run down to Walmart because somebody's got a booth down there and I can get all my Scentsy product there. That does damage to you if you've got customers who are coming to you and then they say, oh, well, I don't need to order from Tia. That's going to take me a week or so. I can just run down there. So that's another reason why we don't allow those types of setups in retail locations. What we wanted to share is in a retail location. I'm going to just say we're in a hair salon, or you could do it at a doctor's office or wherever. You can do a promotional display. The promotional display, I know there's some confusion at times. Well, is that 10 items? We used to have that. Now the way a promotional display, it's set up as you can have one for each product category or price point. So you might have, we've got different warmers that cost different things. So it could end up, maybe you've got 4 or 5 warmers because they're at different price points. And that's okay to have in a promotional display. What you can also have is your business card. You can have order forms, catalogs, all of that. And people can place an order with you at that place where your promotional display is, but you cannot deliver it there. So what you'll need to do is just make sure that you share with your customer as they're filling out their order form and giving that to you, that there is a shipping charge involved, and or if maybe they live close to you and you say, well, I could just drop it off to you, that might be an option too, but you cannot deliver it at that retail location. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody is clear on that. And you can still take orders. Most people are used to having to use shipping charges. And even if you had taken order from them at a party, if they wanted it direct shipped or something, there would be shipping involved there as well. But that's what we hope to share with you tonight. And if that clears up any questions that you may have about retail or the promotional display, I will say, just take it for like a fair and show. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Sometimes people say, well, can I take a picture of my booth and do that on social media? And the answer is no, because again, back to Tia's comments on inventory on hand, we don't want people to see what you have for sale there that day, but you could do a promotional display at your booth so long as we're only seeing that promotional display, and that is what is showing on your social media account. So I hope that clears up any questions you may have, but if you've got some, just put it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end. And I'm going to turn it back to Tia, who's going to do a really fun one, pay to play.
Yeah. And on that, Lori, I just wanted to add, I know that people get excited when they are at like fairs and shows and they want to take a picture of the booth.
Yeah.
As long as you take a picture where it does not include any of, the product, you take it at the door, you take it with your neighbor, whatever, that's okay. But you cannot show the booth even in those pictures where you're just like, hey, I'm down here. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. On to
Thank you.
another fun topic. Ooh, let's talk pay to play. Everybody's favorite. Pay to play. It's when a customer must pay money or purchase product to participate in an activity or a game of chance. In other words, if it costs money to play or participate and prizes are awarded by random selection, this is not allowed. Pay to play of any kind is strictly prohibited. And we do that for a few different reasons. Our most important one is, this is a huge one that the FTC looks at very closely. And a lot of cities, counties, states, countries, it's considered illegal. So even if in your area you find out, oh, I can do it, it's not illegal, we are not going to allow it. We just don't allow it. It would be way too much work for Cincy to keep up with all the cities and the states and the counties and all that to do that. So we just say we don't want to mess with that, right? So you may not require financial consideration for a game of chance or activity where the prize is awarded randomly. For example, you may not sell bingo cards or raffle tickets to customers or guests for your bingo games or drawings. That is probably the number one violation we saw prior to COVID, is people would say, hey, I'm having a bingo party. I'm charging, $30 to play or $5 for an additional card. Now, since COVID, what we've been seeing is more people selling the squares. And no matter what you call it, if you call it a raffle, a dip, a tombola, whatever it is, it's absolutely not allowed. You may not allow a third party to run a raffle, dip, tombola, whatever you want to call it, of any kind on your behalf at all. And that's really important. We do get a lot when we're reaching out on violations where we will hear, oh, that's not me, that's my customer. Well, then you might want to let your customer know you can't do that, because we're going to then have to start blocking orders from that customer, or you may be held accountable depending on what happens at our case review committee or our appeals committee. There's a lot of really good information on pay to play. So I would say check it out in the standards, in the compliance guide. It's mentioned in both. You can also check out, there's a cool training video out there, and it's called How to Ensure Your Party Games and Activities Are Compliant. And it's a short video I would recommend you watch, and that's in the training section of your workstation. If you have any questions, though, please don't hesitate. Pick up the phone and call us.
Yeah. Yeah. We
You can tell
love
we're
the phone
desperate
call.
for phone calls. Every time we do one of these trainings, the next day everybody's like, okay, so we're going to get more calls? We're going to get more calls? We'll see. Yeah.
It's true. But we do love it when you call, and tickets and emails too. But
Yeah.
don't feel like you're bothering us by the call. We really love it. So
Not at all.
all right. Well, what I'm going to talk about next is temporary events. You guys know them usually as fairs and shows, county fairs, state fairs, and small event exceptions. So let me go over a few things with that to help you as you want to develop that part of your business. The first thing that we wanted to share with you tonight about temporary events is, as I mentioned, they are typically from a county fair or state fair. And it's a great way. And we know this. And I'll just say, Orville, before he started Cincy, that was his business. That's what he did. He went to fairs and shows and used product for, they called it Carnauby, and it was car wax and different things like that. So he knows, and we know through this time how important it is for you to be able to do these temporary events, to be able to share the opportunity with people you might not run into again, except in that setting, to be able to do cash and carry and to build up the PRV and things that you have for your business as well. But that being said, we have to be really clear on what the rules are to do that, so that it doesn't get taken advantage of and so that it doesn't impact other consultants in a negative way. So a temporary event, to be a temporary event, it needs to meet the criteria in these areas. The first is it has to have a clear beginning and end date. And along with that, it cannot span more than 30 days. So as you think about where you live, As I said, county fairs, state fairs, usually they're 2 to 3 weeks. Man, Tia, we love to go to the Idaho State Fair. They have the curly fries there and, ice cream potatoes. It's just really good. But anyway,
So
it
if you
has
haven't had an ice cream potato, you got it. Those are the best.
You got
And
it.
Idaho's famous for their potatoes, right?
Yeah. And so it has a clear beginning and end date. It's usually the last 2 weeks of August. So we know that. Some last a little bit longer. I've helped superstar directors who sometimes needed help getting an order because they sold out in the first few days and needed more product to come and still had a week or more to go. So it just depends. It has to have a clear beginning and end date, but it can't be longer than 30 days. So just keep that in mind. And again, it cannot be held in a retail location. As we've discussed already tonight, you just can't do cash and carry at a retail location. The other two criteria to be considered as a temporary event is it has to include multiple vendors, and it has to be put on, by a third party, not by you or by Scentsy. So if this event or temporary event is something you want to do and it meets all that criteria, then great. We'd encourage you to sign up for it if you can and to experience growing your business in that way. But sometimes you're going to come across things that are called flea markets or trade days or farmers markets. And those are a little bit different. So the reason I'm bringing those up is they most likely aren't going to qualify for a temporary event. And so if you aren't finding that you meet the qualifications for a temporary event, then we'd encourage you to look at our small event exception. And this is in the compliance guide as well, to see if that event might qualify for that. So the criteria for that is that it has to be within 50 miles or 80 kilometers of your home. If it's farther away than that, then it's not going to count or qualify for a small event exception. Again, it cannot be in a retail location. The third one is that you must not be able to initiate a contract with the event manager prior to the day that you want to participate. And I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. The fourth thing is that the event must require that all vendor booths be set up the morning of the day you're going to be there and taken down completely by the end of the day. So let's say you found an event, it's 40 miles from your home, and the event is not in a retail location, and you reach out to the event manager and you say, can I initiate a contract on the day I want to be there? And they say, yeah. And then you say, great, I need to be able to also set up that morning and take down completely that night. Is that part of what this event does? And if they say yes, then you're in. You can go the day you want to go, set up your contract, set up your booth, just take it down that night. And then if you want to go the next day, you're going to follow that same process again. You just can't do any of this in advance. It has to be day of. So we are excited about that. We hope that it might, as we decided about initiating this small event exception, we hope it might give more opportunities for consultants to be able to do these events and to share opportunity and sales and such. So be sure, if you're not meeting the qualifications for a temporary event, you check out and see if you meet the qualification for a small event exception. One thing I forgot to share with you is that with farmers markets and trade days, flea markets, those kind of things, when we say for a temporary event, it can't span more than 30 days. Sometimes it's confusing because people will say, well, there's a farmer's market just down the road and I'm going to go down there. I'm just going to do 2 weekends in October, so I should be okay. That's not more than 30 days. Well, what you have to look at is you have to say, when does that flea market start and when does it end? The entire duration, not just the weekends it's open or the days you want to do. And typically you'll see things that open October 1st and go through the end of April 30th. Obviously, that's way more than 30 days. So be sure that as you check that out, you're not misconstruing that it's, oh, I'm only going to do 2 weekends, I should be fine. You have to look at when that event starts and when it ends. And if it's more than 30 days, then you would not be able to do that. So one last thing on that, Tia, that I'm going to add tonight. If you are doing a fair and a show, and let's say you want to sell Scentsy, but you also wanted to sell something else, that would be out of compliance. It's called co-marketing. Even if they are in separate booths, you are not able to do that. So we wanted to share that with you too, to clear up any confusion on that. So Tia, did you want to add anything to that? Or
I did. We just had something come up this week. And so we had, sometimes people will either they own an event, a place that they hold events in, or they have, our example was we had a wedding venue and a consultant wanted to rent the wedding venue, right? Let's say for $500, whatever, right? So they're renting the venue and then they're going to have this fair and show. Well, I want to make sure it's clear that if you choose to do that, if you are the coordinator of the event and you're the one putting it on, you are not allowed to have a booth at that event. You are also not allowed to have even a promotional display. So we want to make sure those things are kept very, very separate. So now you can go ahead and rent a venue and you can have a fair and show and you can allow other Scentsy consultants to be there, but you cannot. And the reason for that is we want to separate the two, what we consider business opportunities, right? We want to separate those. So we don't want somebody renting a venue and they're charging so much for a booth and then they're going to have a booth there and they get to do all the advertising and all that. We just want to keep those very separate. So I know previously we had said, maybe you could have a promotional display. We got clarity all the way up the chain this week and absolutely not even a promotional display. So wanted to make sure we had that in there.
Perfect, great. And then T is also going to share with us another thing that we get reported on or questions on quite a bit, and that is income or product claims.
Yeah. And this is probably, I would say, the most critical area as far as the Federal Trade Commission, so the FTC. This is their number one area. They absolutely do their own proactive searching of the entire internet, all websites, to ensure companies remain compliant. This is one of those areas that can literally bring a company down. And I can tell you, because I've been a member of the DSA for many years, I've seen it happen, okay? Therefore, this is one of those areas that can lead to suspension and or cancellation, depending on how egregious the claim is, okay? We talked earlier about how, I was saying we don't do a whole lot of proactive searching from the in-house compliance team because we simply just don't have time for it. But this is one of those areas that you have to have somebody searching. So we actually use a third-party vendor to assist us with identifying and addressing violations specifically related to income or product claims. And that third-party vendor is FieldWatch or Momentum Factor. You'll hear it referred to as both. And they will actually address, so they will send out the first email to consultants. If consultant doesn't respond or they have some issues or questions, then it will come on over to us. But one of the things, if you haven't, we're trying to get the word out there. When you get an email from FieldWatch on behalf of Scentsy, it's going to come from a different email address. And oftentimes, a majority of the times, that email is going to find its way into your spam. You're not going to see it. We know that, and that's why we try and pick up the phone or we'll email you again from our email. But if you have the opportunity, we would ask that you add this email to your accepted email. And it is compliance.fw for Field Watch, it's FW at Scentsy.com. So if you have time to add that, that's great, or you can add it later. Basically, with product claims, Scentsy does not allow consultants to make product claims unless Scentsy has already made that claim themselves and they've done it publicly. So we really want to step back from those. We don't want to be making claims. We don't have a whole lot of issues in that specific area. And unless people start going towards, oh, the essential oils and the healing process, and I can sleep better when I listen to, or I smell this or smell that. So, but it is an area to be aware of. It is one that FTC watches closely. The biggest one, income claims. It is imperative that any time you're making any type of income claim, that you do two things. One, you have to have that little statement with your post that says results may not be typical, right? You also have to attach the income statement, or it's the income disclosure statement. Both of those can be found in your workstation, but it is really important that when you add those, that you do not add them as a comment to your post. Those must both be in the initial post. I know we had a training out there. I give Jason Hardwood a hard time every time I can, because we reach out to people and they'd be like, but Jason did a training on that and said, yeah, add it to your comments. I'm like, no, Jason. So we've tried to get rid of that training. If it's still out there, I apologize, but it is very critical. The FTC, if it's in a comment, they don't consider it part of the post. If you attach the income disclosure statement in the comment, nope, they don't consider it. So it's just like not having it at all. So those are really criticals, and they're really easy things that you can avoid. And this is where it pains me when this is becomes such a serious issue that somebody could lose their business. It's putting the little statement in there and putting an attachment. Let's be real. When I watch TV, although I try to skip all the ads, almost every ad out there at the bottom now says results may not be typical. And that's because of the FTC. That's why they're cracking down. So want to make that really clear. Yeah. Some of those statements, this includes, even if you're posting about like incentive trips, and we love it. We always see those. We love when people are like, oh my gosh, look, since you just sent me and my family to Disneyland, or, whatever. But we don't want those you have to put those two things in your actual post. And we want you to know, we know you earn it. We also audit those incentive things. So we really know you earned that trip. So just some things to take into consideration. One of the biggest ones is, I don't know why, but since you paid my car payment this month or my house payment, don't want to say things like that. Okay. If you do make any claim at all, again, just those two things you got to put in there. I'm going to drill this into everybody before we leave for the night. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tia, thank you for sharing that. And what I'm going to share builds onto that as well, because she mentioned that we do incentive audits, and it's quite a production, but it's good. We're very thorough in what we do. And again, we recognize the work that you guys have gone to qualify for incentives. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about bonus buying and how that can impact your business, things to look out for and things you can do that would help with that. Tia's mentioned the Federal Trade Commission, and this is another area where they are adamant. We have to prove that our consultants are not bonus buying. So I just wanted a little bit of information is that we do run an internal report that will list consultants who may be involved in bonus buying. We don't say that they, just because they're on the report, that they are. We will take other steps to verify that, but we are required by the Federal Trade Commission to do that and to do everything we can to prevent and to provide education to consultants so that bonus buying is not happening. So I wanted to just share with you exactly what it says about bonus buying from the very first part of the compliance guide. It says, never place orders for the sole purpose of achieving a title, a rank, an incentive, an award, or a bonus. This is also known as bonus buying. And if you want to read more about that, you can find it in Chapter 4 of Standards. So what I wanted to share with you about that is on this report that we get, we will look at it and it will cause us to ask some questions like, boy, that's a lot of orders under that consultant's name. What is she doing with all that product? Is she just buying it for herself? Is it being sold on some e-commerce sites? Anything that might look a little concerning. Now, I want to reiterate, we're not saying that that consultant is out of compliance, but we will reach out and we will ask, hey, can you give us an idea of what these orders are being used for? And typically they'll come back and they'll say something like, oh, I bought a bunch of product because I was going to be at the Minneapolis State Fair or something of that nature. Well, then it makes sense why they ordered that much product and why it was all being delivered to their home. So what we'd like to suggest to you tonight is if you are doing orders for an event that is large, or maybe you're doing business supplies, or maybe you're even making your own whiff boxes, that you make the title of the order what it's being used for. So I know people who do the Idaho State Fair order, and that's what they title the order. And then if they happen to get on our list and go, oh, that shows what they were using that for. Or someone might label their order as whiff boxes for November, whiff box supplies for November. Then it's very clear what that product was being ordered for. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight. Just be sure to maybe do a little bit more in how you name your orders in the event you were to be found on that report. But we would reach out to you and you could provide clarification if it's not named that way anyway. Another thing I wanted to share with you is that we also do these incentive audits, and we get another report from that, and it will show us consultants who may have placed or who did actually place an order on their Frontlines account. They use their credit card and they place that order. Well, typically, as you know, on an incentive, we want you to recruit. We want your businesses to grow, and we want it to have those recruits to make your business be successful. But there's also the side to that where not only do you recruit, but you also want to get that recruit to certified. So it's important that you not use your credit card to put orders on their accounts or on any other consultant's account. Because that could be construed as bonus buying because it looks like you're doing that to help them get to certified, which then again is going to give you points for the incentive. So I want to give you an example. We know that sometimes this happens, and we just want to share that it is the exception, not the rule. Let's say that you just got this new recruit and you're over at her house, you've had the launch party, now it's time to put that order in, and you get to the end when you're going to put payment in, and guess what? She doesn't have a credit card for her business yet, and her husband just happens to be sitting there, and he might not be too happy that she wants to use their credit card to pay for this fancy order, and things might be getting a little tense. And what do I do? And so you'll say, oh, you know what? I'll just use my credit card. So we'll be fine. And then you can get your own business card and we should be fine. Again, we can understand that you might be put in that situation and feel like that's your only option. Again, that's the exception, not the rule. So if that happens to you or a scenario like that, what we need you to do is to immediately reach out to compliance, let them know what happened, and also provide documentation that you were reimbursed by that consultant. Then what we'll do is we'll document that on your account. And as we do incentive audits or other things, we'll see that documented. We may still reach out to you about it, but at least it's there and you've given us a heads up on why that took place. So I hope that that's maybe given you some ideas on things that you can do to not be in trouble for bonus buying, or what will be helpful to you in your business with that particular standard. So it's just a really important one, and we'd like to not have anybody have any problems with that. And we love watching the number of people who qualify for an incentive and are able to just redeem that reward and enjoy those trips and the other things that we offer. So I hope that's been helpful to you. I'm going to turn it back again to Tia because she's got another really important one to discuss with you tonight.
Thanks, Laurie. And on that note, I will just confirm that no, although we do get accused, every time incentives come around, we do hear things like, oh, you guys are just trying to knock us out because then you get to go. No, never. I've never been on an incentive trip. No, would love to.
It'll almost be tempting, but no, we don't do that.
No. Yeah. We often tell Chuck, like, yeah, can we just be in the tugboat that they're pulling in back of the nice ship? Yeah. All righty. One of the new, like with the standards revision, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. We basically changed two things. And one was about director opt-out. Wasn't a big change. The other one was consultants selling to other consultants. Previously, we used to say, we're not getting involved in that. Well, now we rip the Band-Aid off and we are. So the new guidelines related to consultants selling to other consultants, it can be found in Chapter 2 of the Compliance Guide. Like I said, this is a new policy that we just added to the new Compliance Guide this year. And the philosophy behind this, it really is that we feel that the consultant that is selling to the end user or the customer is the one that deserves the commission. So we don't want consultants running their business by way of selling to other consultants. Not to say they were. It's just one more thing for us to put in there just to make sure people aren't, you know. So the way the standard reads, basically it's when selling non-current catalog products to other consultants, the price must be discounted to deduct the commissions earned. Now, typically, this is going to be about, you're going to end up charging about 75% of the retail cost, but rather than guessing, and actually I'm going to give Chuck kudos on this one. Chuck wrote this thing out and it was amazing. So the compliance guide does include detailed information, an actual formula that you can use to determine the appropriate price that you must apply when selling, again, non-current catalog products. So catalog product, you know, those items you can sell as you were doing, but non-current catalog products, you cannot. And because these two, so you have to have two people involved, right? Two consultants involved in this. Because these transactions do involve two consultants, which is the buyer and the seller, each one has their own responsibilities to comply with this policy. So to get the discount, you must prove you are a current consultant prior to the transaction. So you don't get to go out there tricking somebody and then buying it and saying, oh, she should have known I was a consultant. We do say things like, they usually, most of the ones we've heard about, they'll take your word for it, but you can show them like your active workstation dashboard or ask them what they want as proof. We also ask that you respect the selling consultant. They are not obligated in any way to sell to another consultant. So if they choose to not sell to a consultant, they decide they're going to hold on to it, they want to, you know, sell it to a customer, we need to respect that, okay? So if you do identify yourself as a consultant and the selling consultant refuses to discount the product, meaning they're still willing to sell it to you, but they're not going to discount it. Let's say they just decide they're going to charge you the full retail cost or even more. We've seen both sides. The buying consultant should absolutely not make that purchase because we're going to consider both parties to be in violation. And that's our way of kind of trying to keep it very straightforward. So nobody, you know, we aren't trying to look for more violations. Trying to kind of even things out a little bit. So I know that was kind of a painful one when it first came out to consultants when we talked about it. I've got to say we have not had even one, don't jinx me, knock on wood, one confirmed violation of this. So that's awesome. Seems to be working and I hope it does. Just make sure that you are using that. And there are things in there, it'll explain to you in the compliance guide, you know, you obviously do get to charge if they want you to ship it to them or whatever shipping you paid before, that kind of thing. You are allowed to do that. So check out that formula though. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it is great. Yeah. Great. And Chuck, and Tia and I will both agree when we first came up with this and it was being discussed, we were like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. But then the more we listened, it just made sense. I know you've seen people unhappy because they couldn't order some of these LTOs and different things. And then to find somebody who has a bunch of them for sale, this will really alleviate those concerns. And it's going to be a good thing. And to Tia's point, we really haven't had anyone be reported or in trouble for that. So that's a good thing. So we have shared what we had on our agenda with you now. Just wanted to check and see if there are any questions that were on the chat. Teresa, I'll just ask you that we maybe need to to cover, and we'll look through it too. One thing I did see some concerns about, oh, what if I'm ordering this product and I just, if we reach out to you, again, just know we're not out to get you. We just want to ask the question that we need to find out so that we're aligned with the Federal Trade Commission or whatever it may be. If you just share with us what's going on, if there's a problem, we'll give you some more education. If there's not, then we'll say thank you for that information. So please don't be alarmed if we do need to reach out to get more information about that. So Tia, Tia or Teresa, were there any questions that?
I was
So-
looking.
Yeah, there's actually, this was really good. I mean, even I have taken some notes here, a lot of notes and a lot of information in the chats, you know, a lot of questions. Some of the Superstar directors were able to answer many of those. But one of the things we wanted to see if you could touch on is Disney. We have licensed agreements with, you know, different outfits like Disney and NFL, NHL. And sometimes people get so excited and they want to share with everyone in fan groups. They want to alter some of the marketing images. Do you mind giving a little bit of, I guess, feedback as far as our position with our licensed agreements?
Sure, I can touch on that. We definitely don't want you modifying images. And this is probably, I remember when Disney very first came out, and I personally took that on and I was like, I'm going to be the one. And it's funny how many consultants, by the time we went to World Tour, so the next year in the spring, we had so many consultants are like, nope, I'm not even going to sell it. It's such a hassle. It's such a, you know, there's too many rules. So we did try and lighten up on those. But I think the part that sometimes consultants may forget is these are their rules.
Yes.
So we have to abide by them. And they are, let me tell you, Disney is kind of like the FTC. They're out there finding stuff all the time, and they absolutely will reach out to us and say, get this down immediately. So, you know, we don't want it. One of the areas I know that we're real cautious about is we don't want to give the impression that Disney is, forgive my French, like they're out there pimping Scentsy. You know, we don't want Mickey, like, you know, loving on Scentsy, and we don't want to do that. We want to use Scentsy to sell Scentsy, right? And we want to keep that contract alive because, man, I can't imagine a bigger one.
Yeah.
But things like that. Yeah. And you can't use other IP from their movies. We've even had them from their songs. Boy, compliance team. I used to love it when my kids were little. I love the Disney movies, but it's funny. We talked about the other day, like in our next training, we're going to have to start watching all the Disney movies just so we make sure that we're not, you know, we're familiar with what songs, you know, because you can't use any of the other intellectual property of them. And that's a huge umbrella. So yeah, that is something that we will reach out to you immediately. And I believe you get suspended depending on what the violation is. And that's because Disney gives us only so much time to get it down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there is a question in the chat. Amber, do you mind reading the question about like Instagram, Facebook stories when it comes to marketing licensed products? Amber, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, so I know that there's been a lot of questions lately about stories in particular. So someone asked, Elisa said, can we pre-make images using licensed products to post on our stories on Facebook or Instagram? Or do we need to add the text above and below within the stories app?
I'm trying to picture this. So
we have a marketing image, say from the workstation, and oftentimes, like in our stories, you can add music, you can add text. And so she wants to know if it's okay to add the text on the image in our stories, or does it have to be above the image or below the image?
Yes, you can never, ever, ever put any text, symbols, anything on a Disney image, on anything that falls under Disney, on any licensed product. Nope, you cannot put any text at all.
So is it okay to add text above or below the image? You know how when you're adding a story to your Instagram or to your Facebook, there's the kind of blank space above and below the image. Is it okay to add text there, like pricing?
As long as it does not impact the actual image, then yep, then you'd be fine.
Awesome, thank
No
you.
songs though, you can't add any sayings from the movie, that kind of thing. And they take it really serious at Disney, like even something that was said in a movie that, other people would know and recognize as theirs. They don't want you doing that.
Excellent. Thank you. And
It's a
again, there's
great
probably
question.
more questions when it comes to licensing agreement, but in the beginning, Lori was kind and gave us 3 avenues that we can contact them for clarification. We can also revisit the standards that really spell out what we can and can't do, even with license agreements and brands. So we won't be able to cover it all in the next 10 minutes as we're closing this. But I do want to open up to the other Superstar Director panelists. Are there any other questions that you saw in the chat or that maybe wasn't discussed that you'd like Tia or Lori to reference tonight? And while we're waiting for them to unmute themselves, can we talk a little bit about cross-promoting? We have either a director or a star consultant that's amazing with their Scentsy, and all of a sudden, their friends and family members that are in other direct sales companies are like, hey, why don't you join, this company as well? And so oftentimes people think the more companies they're in, I guess the more lucrative it might be for them. But how can we discuss cross promoting when you are a Scentsy consultant and making the decision to join other companies? And it doesn't have to just be direct sales, from what I understand.
Right. So we are real cautious about cross promoting. And we know that, a majority of consultants, I think it's over 90%, I'm sure, either work a full-time job in addition to Scentsy, or a lot of them sell for other DSAs. And we don't have a problem with selling for other direct sales or anywhere else that you work. But we do have a problem with promoting it. So you want to be really careful. I know not everybody, believe it or not everybody has a Facebook page, but like if you have a Facebook page, we absolutely recommend that you have your personal page, and then you can have your Scentsy business page. And that on your personal page, if you're going to talk about, you sell Tupperware or whoever, Pampered Chef, I love Pampered Chef and Tupperware. If you're going to talk about that and advertise anything about that, that you do it on your personal page. And on that personal page, make sure that you do not have any Scentsy consultants on there that you didn't know prior to joining Scentsy. So if you knew somebody, a lot of people, they'll sign up their mother, their sister, whatever. You obviously knew them before joining Scentsy. You're okay to have them on there, but you cannot have other consultants on there.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Kelly or Emily, do you see any other questions in the chat before we close?
I saw one about the in search of fields. So somebody had asked here it is, if somebody posts an in search of, which I assume is in their team page, that they're looking for, let's say, the Llama Buddy that hasn't been in stock for 2 years, whoever needs one, do you have to sell it to them at that price? Now I know the answer, but I thought it would be more professional coming from the professionals.
At what price?
Are you
So
if it's a non-current
Do you sell it to them at a discounted price? Do you have to? How about that? Do you have to sell it to another consultant at the discounted price? Or can you sell it at a not discounted price?
If it is a non-current catalog item, you have to sell it minus the commissions if you're selling it to another consultant.
Or can you not sell it at all?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where we were saying, like, hey, you got to respect the other consultant. If I want to hold on to it because I want to sell it for what I paid for it and I want my commissions, you have every right to do that. You just have to sell it then to a customer, or you keep it for yourself, whichever. Yeah.
So Virginia, hopefully that answered your question. If not, just let us know in the chats.
Because we, in the end run, want the person who gets the commission to be able. So if you want to sell it to a customer, that's fine. You can hang on to it, no problems. But if otherwise, you would need to do it at the discount.
So can we play devil's advocate for a second? This is Emily speaking. Since we can sell product for higher than catalog price, and we can also sell it lower, could it not be reasoned that by those two policies in and of themselves that if a consultant wanted to make sure that they were still getting what they wanted for the buddy, they could just say, well, I'm selling it at this price because I'm allowed to.
You're
Not if
saying
you're
make
selling
it,
not if you're selling to another
making
consultant.
it a higher price, right? Because let's say the llama's been gone for 2 years, using that same example. It was a $25 buddy. Let's say the consultant says, well, it's mine, I bought it, I want to sell it for $30 now because I'm allowed to sell product that I own for any price. So I'm going to start the price at say $30, still give you your 25% commission or whatever we're required to do, but I'm going to sell it for $30 instead of 25 because I'm allowed to do that. That's sort of that catch-20. That sounded kind of a gray area.
Yeah, that's where we're trying to make it really clear. If it is you're correct. You can sell the Scentsy, at any price you want, as long as you don't publicly advertise that. And as long as it's not in consideration of selling to another consultant. If you're selling to another consultant and it is non-current catalog, you've got to remove, it's got to be Scentsy's retail price minus the commissions earned. Plus shipping and, but yeah.
Another question that kind of surfaces, Tia, is we have a friend that makes t-shirts and all kinds of fun products. Can they just take our Scentsy logo and make whatever they want for their teams? Or let's better yet say that it's a Scentsy consultant that says, hey, I also have a business where I make t-shirts and I can make t-shirts for the whole team and charge you all. Can you kind of touch on that when it comes to compliance?
Sure. So consultants, if they want to make their own t-shirts, you're fine to do that, to use that logo. For third parties, they must go through our process, and it's actually through the legal department directly to get permission to do that. We don't want consultants that, let's say you own another, a t-shirt screening business, whatever. We don't want them, they're obviously not in this business to make money off, consultants off making t-shirts, right? We just want to make sure that that those two aren't really tied together. So we would ask that now, if you guys all agree, hey, we're all going to reunion, we want these shirts, what do you guys want to pay? And it's optional, whatever, then you can, as long as it's a consultant making it. But we don't want you mixing that like, hey, I own a t-shirt business, so I'm offering all consultants out there, I'll make your t-shirts. We don't want you doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. We do absolutely love, and some of the t-shirts, we'll sit and just look at them. We're like, oh my God, I love that thing.
It's so cute.
Especially the guys, right, Joseph?
Absolutely. Okay. So any other questions here that
And hi guys, I have a question.
yes.
This has come up a few times about business pages and names. I've had that to come up a few times with team members, and a lot of them don't understand that you can't have the name Scentsy in there. So how do you handle that?
Oh, that's a tough one now, because we've had some system issues. We have a list of, Scentsy, and there's other, I'll just say foul words, whatever. We've seen it all. And they are working on that right now to fix it. But we also we have a group within compliance that will go out and will run lists of all websites named, either it's, whether it's your PWS or it's your external website. And we do try and address those. We've spent a lot of time, especially in the last year, I would say, trying to go out there and correct it all. Yeah. And you definitely got to correct it. We also had a bunch of people that added Disney to it. When we got Disney, and that's not okay either. Joseph.
Okay, so I think that Emily may have had something to share. Let me just make sure that we've answered all of the other questions that we can. I know that there is a question about mystery bags, but Chuck Thompson was actually on last month, and he actually addressed mystery bags. So anyone that has questions about those, revisit the Chuck Thompson Dreamstruck replay, and you'll get some really good clarification on mystery bags there. So, okay, and we just talked about Scentsy being intellectual property. So are there any other questions, Debbie, Kelly, Emily, or Amber, before we close? All right, Emily, I think you had something to share.
I did. Yeah. I remember Chuck once at one point, I'm not sure if he still is. I think he still has a little bit to do with compliance, but I do remember him sharing something once on a call somewhere at one point. It was sort of one of his words of wisdom. He kind of shared 2 golden rules when it comes to compliance. Number one is, when thinking about staying within compliance and running your business in an integral way, number one is what I'm doing hurting or disadvantaging others? And the second one is this something that any consultant can offer? Like when it comes to doing samples or offering some kind of special, right? Because again, that's something that comes up a lot. Is this something anyone can offer? Like when it comes to free samples, yes, any consultant can offer a free sample. So it's not wrong to say, yes, would you like a free sample? No problem. But yeah, the biggest one is what I'm doing disadvantaging or could it hurt another person's business by what I'm doing? And if you can't answer those right, then the chances are the answer is you shouldn't probably be doing it.
Yeah.
That is so great, Emily.
Great.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah. I
sharing
was
that.
just going to say that was perfect. And that just encapsulates it all.
And just so
and
you do know, Chuck is very, very involved.
Really?
I actually report to Annie Price, who's in charge of consultant support. I report to Chuck, who's in charge of a lot of things. And then I actually report to 2 of the attorneys. So the joke around here is, how many people does it take to manage Tia? Yeah. Apparently it's a lot. Yeah.
I love it.
And Chuck is our main, for information and talking things through, or if we want to see something change, whatever. He's amazing. Nobody is more passionate about consultants than Chuck Thompson, man. He loves you guys.
Yeah, he's really great. I will say, and I just want to sort of echo what you guys have said earlier. Compliance is not there to police you, to scold you, to put you in a corner and timeout. They're really there to educate. As an SSD, I've been in Sensi for a decade, and I got my very first compliance phone call a month ago because I did a show, a small show, one that I've done lots of shows in my time as a consultant, but I had taken a picture of where I was, and it wasn't just a picture of my whole booth, but I had taken a picture of some of the activities happening, but I posted on my business page, and I did take a picture of my tent, my setup, but it was a picture of the entire thing, not necessarily one specific product or display. And I don't know if it was you, Tia, or if it was another person with a T name in compliance, but I got a direct phone call. Yeah. And they actually called me and they said, we just want to reach out to you regarding something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. And they're like, no. We just want to, give you some, feedback and counsel. So anyways, they were so wonderful. They just explained. And I asked, it was my opportunity to ask questions for clarification. The lady I talked to gave it to me. She thanked me for being so kind, because it's my guess that when you have to make those phone calls, especially that first time reach out, sometimes your job is really heavy. And so it's important that we remember there's another person on the end of that phone. And in a world where you can be anything, being kind is the most important thing. So I just want to thank you for the sensitivity you bring and the kindness that you bring. And I hope that the few consultants that you do have to make those calls to are kind to you in return.
Oh, that is so sweet. So one of the things, I've been at Cincy almost 12 years, but I joined compliance about 5 years ago. And when I first joined compliance, it was, we don't take phone calls. We only deal with written communication. So I ripped that Band-Aid off. And then the second thing I did, because I saw this huge gap between, if you guys could see it sincerely, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, consultants think we're out there policing them. We want everybody canceled. I promise you, everybody on that's why we get the people on our team that have been here 7, 8, 9, 10 plus years. They love consultants. But the other thing I did was I said, look, we got to bridge this gap. And so we do. The very first time that congratulations, Emily, by the way, the very first time you have a violation, we are going to pick up the phone and call you. We know, we just went through, Laurie just led out on this huge template project so we could be nicer and friendlier and softer. And that can be a little tough because on some things we want you to know it's so serious, right? But we also know we can come up, it can be rude and nobody wants to get that. So we have found that has done wonders because you can connect that you see that it's another person on our end. We just want to help you. Trust me, every single person on that team, if they didn't feel it when they got there, they hear it every single week. We know that you guys have the tough job, and I love my job. Don't tell anybody, I am 2 miles from here. That's why I don't mind being here. Laurie and I do this on our own time. We love doing this because we know you guys have the hard job, and we would not be here without you.
Exactly.
We know that, I promise you. So
Exactly.
if you ever feel like we're being rude, whatever, let me know, whatever, we'll work on it. You actually spoke with Tammy, and she was terrified to call you, but we kind of gave her some confidence and then pushed her out there and said, give her a call. And I said, be careful. She can be really mean, Tammy. No. Just kidding. But we hope that does help. And we hope you guys feel that, we do wish. I've even tried to get a direct line to compliance, because sometimes when CS gets really busy, I know I've heard of hour plus long waits sometimes. And we aren't, like I said, we literally get about 15 phone calls a day.
Hey.
And we'd love more. And especially if you're waiting, sometimes we're really caught up right now. But sometimes when we get a little behind, if you're waiting and you want to know about a fair and show, and oh my gosh, we don't get to it till 3 weeks and that fair and show is over. Oh, that drives us nuts. Yeah. So please pick up the phone and do give us a call.
Thank you.
So much, Emily. That was really sweet.
A couple of comments where they were saying, well, I've called in customer service and they said that we can only reach them through email. And I just encourage them to challenge that, because sometimes when the Band-Aid's ripped off and there's changes and training, some things are forgotten or missed. So do know you heard it here that you can call in. But of course, use discretion. There's resources. Make sure you read your Sensi standards and guidelines. We also have support on our team pages as well. And then when all else fails, then, by all means, pick up the phone or send in a ticket or email compliance@sensi.com. We want to thank you all so much. It is 8:30 Central Time. It's 7:30 Mountain Time. And the fact that you all have spent your evening with us for an hour and a half, it says a lot about both of you. It says a lot about Sensi, the commitment, and even the bond between home office and all of us consultants. You could say, well, we can do this before 5 p.m., but you're like, no, let us know what time. And you've always made yourself accessible. So we appreciate you. You have taught all of us so much. There are already, conversations in the chat, conversations on our team pages that many people who've listened tonight have already learned so much. And that's really the goal. This is a proactive approach. So we don't have to get the emails. We don't have to open the tickets. As long as we educate ourselves and learn, then that kind of takes a lot of the, frustration away down the road. But we do want to thank you both so much, because it's really an honor to have both of you here with all of our teams.
Thank you, Teresa. That was so sweet of you. And you just made our night, because that's why we love to do this, to educate and even get people thinking about things in different ways and like, oh, now that makes sense. So anyway, thank you so much for letting us come. Teresa, I did want to let you know I had received in your email maybe trying to do one for just leadership, but I'll get with Tia and we'll see what we can put together, and I'll get back with you on that. Okay.
Let's do it right now.
Perfect.
Yeah. After party.
We're always in these calls, and then Lori and I are like, hey, for the next hour. So sorry we took up so much of your time. I did have one thing. Joseph, I know I saw you a few times. I don't know if you're waving or raising your hand. Did you have a question for us?
So, as you all know, it's been in the news, Apple News. There was a talk from the IRS about people using Square and keeping it hush hush when it comes to filing their income taxes.
I have not heard anything about that.
I am not sure if anybody at home office has had a chance to sit down and read through it. And I have a lot of people that keep asking me, like a cash and carry. Oh, do you accept debit? I said, I'm sorry, I do not accept debit. You can order online.
Yes.
You can order your product online, or send me an email and we'll talk about EMTs.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah,
Awesome.
we will definitely, I made a note of that too. I
Yeah.
don't know if it would be covered under compliance or just really us with our finances and taxes and stuff. But the IRS is always, they're always making changes
Yeah.
to some degree, some to our favor and some to our disadvantage. We
It's,
do have
you know,
consultant
cash and
group as
carry
well.
events, you gotta be careful with that,
You do.
Tressa,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fees and stuff. And we do talk, I've had questions about, you know, is PayPal considered a third party? I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice.
Mhm.
Okay,
Read
Joseph.
through their terms and conditions
Yes.
first.
Oh, okay.
Great
So
advice.
before we get into that, because I know we're at the end of the hour,
Yeah.
Joseph, but some of these things we can take to our team pages. That way we don't hold up
Yeah.
Yep.
Tia and Lori. They probably want to eat dinner too, but thank you so much. There is a U.S. tax consultants group with Sensi where we can ask questions. And there are actually 2 consultants who work for the IRS who can
Oh,
kind of,
good.
dive into that. So it would kind of be
Good.
separate from clients. And they might
Yep.
even be able to talk about the PayPal things. So thank you, Joseph, so much.
Yep.
Tia, Lori, thank you
All
guys.
right. You're
You are
welcome.
so welcome. Thank you. We love
You're
you.
so
Love you guys. We love you.
Bye.
Give us a
Absolutely.
call. Give us a call so all of our reps can get a call tomorrow.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And like
Thank
I said, I
you.
hope this is only the first of many conversations. Good conversations.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Take
Good
care,
night.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.